Hi, I am Jessica Graham Robinson of SacredSpaceHealingArts.com, and I wanted to share a few things with you today about the human body and the human experience and how we can actually live better lives and be in less pain and be happier and it can be easier than you thought, maybe. So, I've been teaching yoga for over 20 years now, and I've been a body worker for close to 20 years. Um, One of the things that I see very, very often, or actually, it's more than one thing, but I see a whole lot of people coming in that their problems, their chronic pain that keeps coming back over and over is really stemming from some super simple things that if only they knew and could put these things into practice, maybe they wouldn't have to keep coming back to see me quite so often. So I know body work is wonderful, massage feels so good, but if you are one of those people who are constantly dealing with one thing, whether it's your commonly for women it's neck and shoulders, and a lot of times it is for men too, but very common for women it's neck, shoulders, upper back. For lots of people across the board, there's a lot of lower back stuff. And when I have people come to me for these things that I see all the time, I try my best to educate them and let them know, like, these are things you could be doing that would really help because this is where it's coming from. And sometimes they practice these different exercises that I give them at home. But it's just a quick window of time that I usually have to share something with them. And so I wanted to take a moment to do just a little video. This is not going to take a whole lot of your time, but I'm going to show you just a few exercises that if you did these on a regular basis, it could really change the way that you experience life in your body. So to move on from that, I just want to say like that these will be very helpful in countering a lot of the stress and strain that is going on in your body. However, if you really want to get rid of a problem, then we need to look even deeper and we need to go to find like where is the root, where is this pattern coming from in your body and your life. And oftentimes it's something just as simple as the way you hold yourself, like the alignment, your normal alignment for you is not what it should be because maybe you were never taught, or maybe it was because of an occupational thing, right? A lot of jobs have us doing tasks and no one is teaching us how to do these with proper alignment. And over time, that leads to a pretty stressed out body, muscles that are doing work that a different set of muscles was supposed to do, or muscles that are doing work but the bones that they're having to move are in the wrong position. So they're having to work way harder. And the result is some muscles get overstretched, some muscles get over tight, some muscles aren't getting used at all. And then the whole mix is not supportive the way it should be. It should be that for the shoulder or the knee or the hip or the head, that you have all these different you have this intricate system of muscles, and it's all the way around, inside, across, like, right? All of these beautiful patterns of muscles that are meant to support you with a particular alignment. And if you, it's a lever system. So if you think about like shifting all of the bones around so that they're not where they need to be, and then trying to utilize the lever system, it puts a lot of strain on certain muscles. And that's where, and when, over time, that's what leads to chronic pain. That's what leads to disc degeneration, all of these different issues. So the good news is, wherever you find yourself today, you can heal. You can feel better than you do right now. I promise. So I'm just going to show you a few things, and I just want to start off by saying, obviously, I'm not your doctor, and I don't know what your physical history is. And so if you want to work with me, then contact me directly and we will work together. We will set up a conversation and see if that works out for us to work together, and I can show you some things personally. So otherwise, just listen to your own body. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm showing you some things that have helped me and have helped a whole lot of people, and I hope that they help you. But always be mindful to the signals that you're getting from your body when you're doing something. That's of utmost importance. So here we go. All right. So you don't have to have any fancy equipment. You don't have to have a yoga mat. You don't have to have yoga clothes to do any of the things that I'm going to show you. Some of the things could be done in street clothes as long as the clothing allows for movement. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is, this might seem so silly, but I'm going to show you how to sit, because no one has probably shown you that before. And unfortunately, because we sit so much in our culture and sit in chairs so much in our culture, it makes it so that we've lost we lose tone in a lot of muscles in our core to hold the spine and the pelvis in the place that it needs to be. So here we go. I'm going to show you. I'm going to take this chair, move my little sheepskin over, and I'm going to pull this chair out. All right, so if you're sitting in a chair, it's important that you sit properly. So ideally, if you're sitting in a chair for a long period of time, if you're watching a lecture, if you're in a class, if you're doing anything for any period of time, you want to not be sitting back and just relaxing in the chair. Because when you do this, the sitting bones roll up underneath you, and now you're sitting kind of more on your femurs and the back of your sitting bones, and your lower back is flattened. And then if you notice too, I kind of have no option other than to round a little bit forward, right? Because there's the chair back there, so I can't really put my shoulder blades where they need to go either. So this is not a terrible thing if you were doing it every once in a while for a minute or two, but the problem is we do so much of this, and that creates a problem. So here's how we sit. You sit towards the front of your seat. You want your pelvis on the seat, right? Not your thighs per se. And then we want to rock back and forth or side to side, and notice those two big bones, those that you feel like you're hitting. And those are what people refer to as the sit bones. They are the bottom of the pelvis. They're these big looped bones, and that spot where we call the sitting bones is technically, it's your ischial tuberosities on both sides. So we want to sit right up on that. And it might be helpful, especially if your norm is to round and like to tip the pelvis posteriorly. It might be helpful to grab underneath and pull out your butt flesh a little bit. Yeah, so you're sitting on the sitting bones, and then just notice, take a hand to your lower back and a hand to your low belly. And again, you can do a little rocking. Ideally, the sacrum which is about right here. I'm just feeling around. Okay, about right here is it's a triangular bone, like an upside down triangle, and it's a flat-ish bone. That bone, ideally, is not straight up and down. It's definitely not backwards, but is slightly tipped forward to begin the forward curve of your lumbar spine, your lower back, right? So if you can see, like, I have a little curve there, and that's good. We want a little curve there, a little forward curve there. And then the upper back, we want to be long and tall. It has the opposite curve, right? So if I round forward a little bit so that I take my shoulder blades off, you can see that there's a little bit of a curve, a backward curve in the thoracic spine. When I put my arm bones and my shoulder blades there, then it looks straight, but that's because of the extra width there of the scapula, the shoulder blades, right? So the heads of the arm bones go into the back body instead of down and forward. All right, and then the neck curve is the same curve as the lumbar curve. It goes forward. It's a lordotic curve, whereas in the thoracic spine we have a kyphotic curve. It goes backward. So this is how we sit. You sit long and tall so that the chest is a little lifted. You can expand into the back ribs when you breathe, as well as the side and the front ribs. And there's a fluidity to the spine, right? So it's not stuck. It's not a statue. It's not like there's one spot where your spine belongs at all times. Rather, there is a perfect alignment for you where your head is balanced freely on top and your spine is fluid and allows for movement with every breath, with every other kind of movement that you do. You're going to compensate a little in your spine. So the same is true when you're doing things. Let's say you're picking something up off the floor. So watch, I'm going to pick up this tiny bolster. So I'm gonna take my knees apart and I'm going to bend from my hips. I'm going to bend from my hips to grab this, and my spine hasn't changed. The relationship of the parts of my spine haven't changed. What changed was I am pivoting in my hip socket, okay? That's really important. Super important for doing things like picking things up off the floor, picking up anything with weight, bending over, vacuuming, getting something out of the dryer, anything like this whatsoever. So important that you're coming from there. So let's just say we're going to get up now, and it's going to be the same thing. I'm going to lean forward in the hips, put my weight in my feet, and then stand. And so at no point did my spine round. Does that make sense? It's super important. While we're here in the chair, I'm going to go ahead and show you the very next piece. And this is one of the things that I see so often is super tight hips. We don't move around and explore range of motion as much as we used to because we do so much of this sitting stuff. And because we get so specific in our movements, right? So like if you're a person who has a desk job, you do what you do throughout your day, and that's what you do. Even if you go and work out, you probably do the same things most of the time. And you're not exploring your full range of motion. Therefore, your hips and the muscles that support the pelvis are getting tighter and tighter and losing range of motion. And what's bad about that is that, one, we lose pelvic stability, which makes it so that lower back pain is probably going to be an issue because of the tightness in those muscles, and could lead to disc problems and all kinds of pain. But another bad thing is that when you lose range of motion and these muscles get tighter and tighter, and think of just more and more constriction over time to the whole pelvis, you are getting less nourishment to the bones of your pelvis, your thigh bones, and this is one of the major causes, I believe, of hip replacements. The tightness, the constriction, the lack of blood flow, the lack of nutrition getting to those bones and all of the connective tissue, too much constriction. It's literally choking and starving the bones, and so they get so brittle that they break very easily. So we don't want that to happen, and the good news is it doesn't need to happen. So here is an exercise that's super simple you can do at home. All you need is a chair. You can also do this at work and nobody even knows what you're doing. So the one thing to remember is the sitting piece that I showed you. This is really important. The other thing is when we bend forward, the pelvis and the spine stay aligned. The pelvis is doing the moving, and that's why the spine is moving. But the spine is not changing its form. Got it? All right, so you're sitting in this position. We're gonna pick up a leg and cross it over so that your ankle is now on top of your knee, or the part of your thigh that's close to your knee. And then you're gonna flex your foot. This part is very important. Imagine that you had a string on the four corners of your feet. Inner ball, inner heel, outer ball, outer heel. You have strings, and these strings are all pulling up in the direction of the knee, so that your foot is effectively active in the same way that it would be if you put it down on the floor. Does that make sense? A little bit of environmental noises there. So flexing in that way so that you're protecting your knee. This is why we're doing it. So if you can see my foot, this is not what we want. This will get you an injured knee. So we're going to flex the outer edge of the foot in the direction of the outer ankle, in the direction of the outer knee. Remember, think of the string pulling up, okay? So this stays this way. Now, go back to your seat, your good seat, and see if you can even pull out a little bit more of the flesh underneath and be right up on top of the sitting bones. If you've done this, there's a very good chance that you already feel a stretch. And this is where you'll feel it, right in here, deep in here. You may feel it in the inner leg a little bit, in the back, in the hamstrings. There's a few other places you might feel it, but this is the target area, okay? It's the attachment. It's right where these deep external rotators attach from the sacrum and tailbone to the thigh bone, to the head of the femur. So we're gonna stay aligned, and we're going to pivot in the hips as little or as much as you can without rounding your lower back. So you can check in by putting your hand there and seeing if it starts to round backward at all. If your lower back is flat, you gotta sit back up. You gotta maybe even come out of take the foot down and start over, because that is so important. So we get the curve, the pelvis is tipping, and then we lean a little bit. Stay nice and tall in your spine. And you'll feel it. And then you're just gonna breathe. So we're gonna do this right here if you're doing it with me. If not, pause, go grab a chair and try it out. So you're just taking a few deep breaths, or a few breaths that feel good to you. Breathing into the back of your heart, breathing into your low belly, breathing into your low back. Notice the sensations you're feeling in that hip. Notice how they change, if they change. And then we're going to sit back up, and we're going to switch sides. So we're going to place the right foot down, or whichever foot you have, and switch. Remember the flexion. Remember the idea of 4 strings, and the strings pulling up. So if there were no strings, right, there'd be a flop. So think of like a marionette, and we're pulling up. And we're going to keep that action in the foot. We're going to sit. We're going to try to pull out the butt flesh even more. Tip the pelvis a little forward. Lengthen the spine. Breathe in. And then slowly tip in the pelvis. Notice if this side feels tighter or less tight. Keep breathing, however feels good to you to breathe, but just enjoying the breath while you pay attention. So we do have the foot active here. We do have the spine long. There's some muscles involved in holding the form of what we're doing, but overall, we're relaxed. And so a couple of little tips while you sit here and breathe into this one. If your chair is too short or soft and squishy, this won't work so well. If you're tall, you need a tall chair. If your hips are very tight, you need a tall chair. If my hips were really, really tight, I would do something like take a bolster if I didn't have a higher chair. And that will give the hips a little more lift, which means the foot in relationship isn't coming up as high. So it's a little, it's not quite as difficult in that way. Does that make sense? There are several different versions of this stretch, this exercise. We can do it on the floor, we can do it standing, we can do it sitting in a chair, we can do it lying on our backs. But I think this is the best one to get you started. If you get to a point, or if you're already at a point where this feels super easy and you've got your foot there and your back is nice and flat and you're able to really go like a further distance, then like past 45 degrees, then you could take it and turn around and do the same thing using the chair for your hands. So you're going to cross, flex, keep the standing knee bent because that's a shelf for this. And same thing, tip the pelvis forward and then lean into your hands in a relaxed way. Right? And so this is where, you listen to your body, you feel, you keep checking in to make sure the lower back is tipping. And if it is, then you can bend your elbows and eventually come to the floor. But don't push it. Don't try to do too much too fast, because we're trying to do something good for your body. And if we push ourselves too hard, that's not going to be very kind, and it may end up that you hurt yourself and then you can't do it at all for a while. So it's just not worth it. The next thing, since we've got the chair here, is going back to kind of where we were before. If you have a chair in front of you or something that's the right height for you, it could also be a counter. It could also be the back of the chair, depending on what kind of tightness is going on for you in your hamstrings and your hips and your glutes. So I'm going to turn it around this way. I'm going to place my hands on the chair. It would be fine to hold it this way as well. That's not super important as long as your wrists are fine. My feet are hip distance or a little wider. I'm going to bend my knees both forward without taking the heels off the floor. And then I'm going to really push back through the sitting bones. So again, it's about tipping the pelvis to get the curve so that the spine can feel good, right? So then from there, without too much forcing, I'm going to extend my legs and my feet toward the earth, like into the floor, and see what happens if I start to lengthen the legs. right? Without locking, without going past straight. And just breathe. Making sure to put weight in all four corners of the feet, just like the same place that I mentioned the strings before. So this is a great one to do. It's releasing the lower back, it's stretching the hamstrings, which pull down on the ischial tuberosities, the sitting bones, if they're too tight. It opens up the glutes. It's a great, great, great thing. You can hang out there for a minute, see what feels good. You can do it often. Your hands can also be at a wall. Eventually, your hands might be going closer to the floor, on some blocks, on a box, whatever you have to use as a prop. And remember, you don't need fancy yoga equipment to do this stuff. So I'm gonna move the chair off to the side and show you a couple other things. So if you come now onto your hands and knees, and I have this sheepskin that I like to use, but you don't need a sheepskin either. I'm going to spread my fingers wide and put pressure through all 10 finger pads on the floor, and also pressure on this row of metacarpals, but very much, especially paying attention to this spot, the index finger metacarpal, where the finger inserts into the palm, both hands. I'm going to make sure that that spot has the most pressure and stays in contact with the floor. Otherwise, I could be doing some damage to my wrist. So if you have wrist issues, that's what you want to focus on when your hands are on the floor. And even if you have carpal tunnel syndrome, you can actually do some healing with exercises like this as long as you use your hands correctly. Again, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm sharing with you what has worked for me and many other people. Okay, so placing the hands and kind of clawing the floor like that. Knees are hip distance, feet are hip distance. Soften the belly, soften the heart, and just let yourself let go here first. Take a couple breaths. So often we are in the other shape, right? And so it becomes important for us to let go into this shape. So you're going to take a deep breath in, let the shoulders move further back, the heart forward, the belly forward, the neck long. And then as you exhale, you're going to scoop the tailbone a little here, draw the belly in and up, drop the head, and inhale again into cow, and exhale into cat. Inhale, and exhale. And do this 2 more times with your breath. Inhaling, claw the floor, really melt heart. Exhale, curl under. And one more time, breathe in. Not forcing, but really letting go in order to open. And then exhale, soft, pressing back through the heart. All right, coming back to cow, soften in the heart and the shoulders and the belly. Take your knees further apart so they're a little bit wider than your hips. And your feet are together, the inner edges. So I'm going to just kind of point my toes and touch my big toes together. And then I'm going to sink backward with the pelvis all the way as far as I can go. And then if it's uncomfortable for you to just drop down, bring your elbows in so they can support you. And you can drop your head here. Or you could put 2 fists together like a little tower and place your forehead there. You can also use props. You could like take a blanket, fold a big pillow, and do something like this. This is a super sweet pose. So there's lots of ways to make yourself comfortable regardless of your level of flexibility. So that's not an excuse. I hear that all the time. I'm not flexible, yoga is not for me. Being flexible and being strong are byproducts of doing the practice. So we're going to just sink into it wherever you are. Sink into child's pose for just a few breaths. I'm going to let you stay there for just a couple more minutes while I tell you. So you're going to have a different experience if your knees are together or if your knees are only hip distance versus further out. If your knees are only hip distance, then when you go forward, most likely your knees are going to hit you, right? They're going to be in the way, and then that's going to make for a rounding of your lower back, which can be fine too. But for our purposes today, one of the reasons that we're doing these practices is to help encourage the curve in the lower back. So I want you to have your knees a little bit wider. And this would be too wide, right? Super wide is too wide. Wide enough that your body is going down as far as it goes without your knees getting in the way. That's where we want it. So that you're there, you're relaxed, but there is still a bit of a curve in the lower back in the proper way. Okay, so if you're still in child's pose, just breathe deeply, take your hands under your shoulders, and slowly press yourself back up. So next I'm going to show you two more things. Oh, I think we're getting close to time. So we're going to lie down. I'm going to show you one more thing to start with. And then there's always more time later. All right, so you're going to lie on your back. You're going to tuck your shoulders up underneath you. So let me show you that from up here. So if we're often kind of standing or sitting in a way that our shoulder blades are going up and out, right? Then what we're looking for right here is tucking that shoulder blade in and down so that it literally goes deeper into the body and looks very different, if you can see one from the other. So we're going to tuck and we're going to tuck. Okay, so as you lie back down, you're going to just bend your knees in a comfortable way. Tuck, tuck, just like I showed you. Take your elbows straight out, if you were to take your arms straight out, and then turn, bend your elbows so that the fingers are pointing up in the direction of the wall that your head is closest to. And then palms are open. So I'm showing you this, but for some of you, the shoulders may be tight, very tight, and doing just this might be straining. So if your hand doesn't have its full weight, see how my hands are dropping? If your hand doesn't have its full weight in the floor and it feels light like this, or even if it's hovering, then you want to open your arm a little bit more, just a little bit at first, and see what angle works better so that my hand is relaxed, my arm is relaxed, and find that place. Even if you have to lower the elbows down, that's okay. And then you can work back up to 90 degrees. So here you are. I want your head on the floor with nothing, no pillow underneath, because what we want is the curve of the cervical spine to be here and the head to be flat on the floor. And then you're going to rest. So options for your legs. If you have some lower back issues, you can keep your knees bent. You can widen your feet and let your knees support one another. If you don't have lower back issues, you can straighten your legs below you. It must feel good though. You can't, don't put yourself in a position that does not feel good. So when we do this, we're retraining in a very passive way. We're retraining your the muscles and the alignment of your shoulders and neck and upper back to hold the form of where they're meant to be in alignment. So if you're in this pose that I was just in, I encourage you to just stay there for several minutes, for at least 5 minutes if you can, or 2, right? So you always have to listen to your body. So listen to your body, and if you start to feel achy, of course come out of the pose, and then you can work up to a longer time period. But to start out, do what's comfortable, and do it often. 2 of the times that I tell people to work this in that are easy is, one, when you're about to go to bed, lay down in your bed with no pillow and just do this for the first 5 minutes, and then you can roll over and go to sleep. Another time is when you first wake up in the morning. When you first wake up in the morning, the alarm goes off, hit snooze, move the pillow away, tuck the shoulder blades, and just breathe and lie there and do a gratitude practice, or think positively about your day coming ahead. So those are 2 easy ways to work them in. Another one might be, as soon as you get home from work, that's what you do. Or as soon as you finish lunch, if you're somewhere where you have the space, just do that for 5 minutes. And the more you do these things, the more you're going to hone your ability to listen in and know what your body needs, but also the more ease your body will be in. You'll start to find more ease in your lower back and your hips, and keep moving, right? So this is just the first. I will be doing some more of these simple yoga videos, just really practical tools that everyone can use. I hope this was helpful. Again, if you would like to see more of what I do, subscribe to this channel. If you're watching it on YouTube, you can also go to my website at www.sacredspacehealingarts.com, and you can see all of the goodies that I have to offer there. I would love to work with you. If you are interested, when you go to my website, click on the button to schedule your wellness discovery session with me. It's free. It's a time for us to talk about what you want in your health, and what the challenges are that are in your way, and how we can start to remove some of those roadblocks. Okay? I look forward to talking to you, and have a wonderful rest of your day. So I will say namaste.